Hi there, it's Sarah of Get Weaving. I'm calling this your DIY dress, basically because you're going to do it yourself, hopefully. This is going to be in 2 bits. So the bit I'm doing today is all about finding your panel sizes, your pieces. It's very simple. It's all cut straight lines. And then the second part will be actually stitching it together. From these simple shapes, you can either make a tabard overhead or a dress. I think all this started from a pinafore that I got from my mum. She used to do a lot of amateur dramatics, and I think she possibly wore this in one of her plays. She was probably, I don't know, a servant in the kitchen or something like that. I've added patches of hand weaving to it because I think I wore it to one of the shows one year. It's essentially, the one I'm doing is all squares and rectangles. So straight line cutting, nothing scary. As usual, I've started off with a spare piece of fabric to make a mock-up, which is the one behind me. I'll put a full-length picture on in a minute. It took me pretty much all day to figure this out, just to get the proportions right. I didn't want it too big, but on the other hand, I wanted it to fit over my head. So this was essentially the shapes. I'll add this as well later. So all the same width as usual, or half widths, or and the main thing being that if you can, keep your selvages. The front and the back are the same. Then there are 2 shoulder straps. There are 2 pockets. There are 2 waist tabs. So if you want it just as a tabard, you don't put the side pieces in, but I wanted it as a dress, so it's got side pieces as well. And hopefully from the measurements I give you, you'll be able to work this out for your own size. I've got quite a lot of remnants. Some of them are going to be big enough for maybe the pockets. I quite like the idea of making this up from all different pieces of fabric. When I've woven something, I throw away all the tiny bits now, or I stick them on a backing or something, or I give them to somebody in the guild, they can do something with them. I keep the bigger pieces, so long as they're big enough for a collar or a pocket, or a pouch or a bag or something. So I've got a drawer full of fairly large pieces. So I might do the front and the back in something, and the shoulders and the sides in something, if I've got enough. The main thing is that they're all a similar weight. So I wouldn't put a very heavy wool with a very fine cotton. I don't think it would hang properly. The other thing I quite fancy doing is having different types of weave, all rigid heddle. So there'll be perhaps some pick-up stick weaving, maybe just on the pockets or something, or some colour and weave. So that would mean setting your loom up possibly 2 or 3 times. Colour and weave, requires its own patterning. These are my 2 favourite books for these things. Hopefully, if you wove your own scarves or your own piece of fabric, you get the width pretty much how you wanted it. But if it's completely wrong, too wide, and you've got to start cutting and you lose your selvage, then there's lots of ways of finishing the edges off which are decorative, like blanket stitch or binding, lots of things. So I'll go into all that in the second part about the sewing. You might want to leave some of the edges fringed. So this has a front and a back facing, which is turned in, but I quite like the idea of turning the facing out and having a fringe on the front. I don't think I'll have a fringe on the bottom though, because they tend to get really pretty messy. So if you're just making the tabard, that's no sides, so that's front, back, shoulder straps, waist tabs, it looks like this. And the dress looks like this. It helps if you have a mannequin, but if not, hopefully you might have a friend who can help you. It's really helpful to have somebody to measure and all sorts of things, just to keep a check on things, and how do you look at the back and all that sort of stuff. The first thing I did was layer, well, in fact, I laid the tabard on the table to get the width of the shoulders, because that is going to be the width of my fabric. So for me, that's 16 inches, and that allows a little bit of ease. Obviously, you need to work out your own proportions. So what I've got is panels or half panels, but maybe you might need 1.5 panels or 2 panels or something, depending on your shoulder to bust to hip ratio, because obviously you need it to be comfortable. Then I measured down from the throat to get the front, and then I measured from the top of the facing here down to the bottom to get the length. And for me, the length is about 40 inches. That allows for a hem and the facing at the top. The shoulder straps for me are a half width and 12 inches long. Forgive my inches, but if I start converting it all into centimetres at the moment, it's going to take forever. So the shoulder straps are like half a width each, and then they're folded in half. Obviously, when I do the proper one, I'll be stitching and turning through and what have you. But this was just really quick, so I could get the shape right. The waist tabs again are a half width, and they're folded in half. I didn't think a single width would be strong enough to hold the skirt panel. And these again, they could be interfaced or not. It's up to you. That's why you need to try on spare bits. The extra side panels, so it makes it more of a dress, they're a whole width, and then they're sort of pleated on, or they could be gathered on. Depends what weight your fabric is. I quite like just doing these tucks. But as I said, I'll show you in the next part how to actually construct this. I'm hoping I've got enough fabric already woven. I quite like the idea of a dress all made up of different bits. So we shall see. So it's important to mark your waistline. So what I used to do is wear a t-shirt and then tie a ribbon around my middle, that's good to find your waist, because you want these sort of waist height, and then you can get the measurement of the side panels. Yeah, I think that's about it really for the moment. The what I'm wearing today is a jacket. It's my latest pattern. It's TO24, and this is cotton, and so as usual I'm in layers. It's not particularly cold today, and I just find nowadays if I make things like this, I can wear them almost all year round. I've also got another piece of fabric. So that's this piece. You've probably seen this before, because I think I intended making something else with it, but I love this jacket so much. It's got short sleeves, but there's enough fabric in, so it's quite cozy. So I think I'm going to make a pink woolly version with short sleeves and a cotton collar, I think, this time. So I will add lots of diagrams, and there'll be a measurements sheet. This is the one I've got. So as usual on here, it's got the size of the fabric you need, finished, washed, off the loom, washed, dried. And then at the bottom, I've put how I work out how much fabric I would need to weave. Depends how much time I've got. So I think I might make up the one with odd pieces first, if I've got enough. Of course, you could always combine hand weaving and purchased fabric. So you could have, you know, if you haven't got much, maybe you could have one panel in your hand weaving. So that would be like one 16-inch scarf by 40 inches long, which isn't too difficult. And then you could use small pieces for the pockets and the tabs and the shoulder straps. But for the inserts at the side, if you'd got some commercial fabric that was the right weight, you could have those as a contrast. The possibilities are endless. As usual, having fun. Right. I will definitely be trying to put this one together in remnants. And if it looks hideous, I'll I'll keep quiet about it. Have a good day. Bye now.